Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Jason.
Nothing like waking up with a little fire.
Oh man, I'm on fire right now.
You
Even though
know,
we're in your garage and it's 55 degrees on here. I'm on fire on the inside.
hey. It's not like it's that time of year, Jay, where the football playoffs, the NFL playoffs are going to be starting. And you know those the guys in Buffalo are ready to take their shirts off, drink some beer, and sit in the stands to like freaking sub-zero temperatures.
Oh man,
With their face
the
painted.
Cleveland Browns fans. That's what comes to mind. Those dirty dogs in the stands. We are the fantasy baseball advocates, guys. We are here in Jason's garage. This is very rudimentary here, guys. We've got some work to do. We're just talking about all the new developments that we need to put together for you fans out there, you followers. All two of you are followers on YouTube.
We are so
And
excited.
Again, those of you in Brussels, Belgium, who caught some of our previous podcasts, I hope you're still out there listening. Guys, we are here in central Indiana in my friend Jason's garage right now. We
And
got the space heater on us, staying nice and cozy warm.
This is where it's all starting. And it's all because of you guys.
That's right. This is where it's all starting, and there is plenty more to come. We are excited about all the stuff we're going to do in the future, and we're going to keep doing these long form podcasts for a while, and we're going to branch out, and I'm sure we'll have some shorter snippets for people to digest. But we are the who are we really as fantasy baseballers? We're the long form guys. We want to have a conversation about this that lasts for an hour, and I'm sure that there'll be more different type of material that we'll make together. But I love long form podcasts of many kinds.
So to attest to what you're saying, the listening audience needs to understand that not only are we here to discuss fantasy baseball and have an hour-long podcast, but it's twofold. A, we love doing this. We are talking about something we love with a passion. So thank you, all of you, for tuning in and listening to it. And B, the second reason that we are here to advocate for your mental health by utilizing fantasy baseball is to show you a perspective from a deep league perspective. And this is what I want to tell you. We say every show we focus more on deep league categories. We are flexible. We can talk about fantasy baseball on the whole without that. But what I want to define this just a little bit more for just a minute here. This is an example of what I'm talking about. If you play in a standard 12-team, just regular league on CBS, Yahoo, ESPN, Fantrax, I personally feel like Fantrax and Yahoo are the way to go. But CBS, I've never tried their league, but they do well for themselves too. But what I'm saying is, if you play in a standard 12-team league, you are trying to draft for upside, because what's going to set you apart from the other guys that are contenders in the league at the end of the year is if you are the guy who hit on Cole Reagans, if you are the guy who hit on Zach Eflin, if you are the guy who hit on those guys that were not on anybody's draft radar to start the year.
For 10 to 12 team leagues.
Yeah, because here's
and
why.
We have something to offer you.
We do. In a 10 to 12 team league, you can take chances at the draft table. However, if you are in a deep league, a deep 15 to 16 team league like we are, you cannot take as many of those risks at the draft, because the replacement level player that you're going to be picking up off the wire when your high draft pick fails. Let's say let's look at a shortstop prospect not on here. Oh, by the way, guys, we're talking about shortstop today.
We are going to be talking about shortstops today. We're going to break down Jason's top 20 ranks in just a little bit. But anyways, keep going.
No, it's okay. We're going to see what you have to say about it. But to finish off my rant here, let's say you drafted, Jay, give me a shortstop in the last 10 years that was a big bust. Anything come to mind? I'm thinking of like,
A big bust.
Yeah, like, I really should have done this research up here. Anyway, let's say you draft somebody high and they bust. In a 10 to 12 team league, you may be picking up Jamie Pena as a replacement level player. Hey, he can get you through until you find that next big thing. In a 15 to 16 team league, he's not available.
Yeah, he's not available. Look,
You're picking up
talk
Paul
about some of
DeYoung of the White Sox.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of those names.
Yeah. All right, that's just a little transition. This is what we're trying to help you out with, guys. So
we are going to talk about the shortstop position today. We're gonna go through Jason's top 20 ranks for fantasy baseball shortstops in 2024. We'll do a little back and forth. I've got some opening thoughts about this list of shortstops. Jason, do you have any big general takeaways from the shortstop position in 2024? Like, what's your overall impression of this list of players?
I'm so glad you asked that, Jay. So my general impression takeaway, and as you guys who have been following know, that Jay and I have going through these rankings have compiled a ideal stat line. Not an ideal stat line, an ideal stat floor that you should shoot to attain in a deep league per position. And shortstop is no different than some of the others, except it offers a little bit more in the speed category and a little bit less in the RBI category. I noticed as I went through this list. Shortstop is not the deepest position. It is deep, but shortstop is also not the most talented position. There are drop-offs. There are, depending on the size league you play in, probably spots where you wouldn't feel comfortable. You would feel like you missed out at the draft table if, say, so-and-so and so-and-so is your starting shortstop. But anyway, shortstop, what I like to look at it this year is shortstop is the position that just has a little bit of everything for everybody. And I had so much fun compiling this list, Jay.
So you pointed out something. You've been putting together these average stat lines for the top. Did you do like the top 16?
I did.
Excuse me, shortstops again. So there's something I want to tease out of this. So you've put together this average stat line. Is this stolen bases here the 24?
Yes, absolutely.
Your average stat line that you put together is 87 runs, 22 homers, 73 RBIs, 24 stolen bases, 271 average, and an 800 OPS.
Yes.
So let me just ask you: how much are you really looking for stolen bases from the shortstop position? I mean, is this for you? I guess let's just say this year. Is this somewhere that you're targeting? Like, are you looking for stolen bases? How much do you value guys that can give you a lot of stolen bases?
I'm going to tell you, Jay, stolen bases
or do you need to make a choice between power and stolen bases?
I think it's going to be in a 10 to 12 team league. I think you need to shoot for stolen base upside at shortstop. And you can see that it's evident in my rankings that a vast majority, unless you're getting tremendous power, a vast majority of these guys at least give you double-digit steals. Now, look, it's not that hard to accrue double-digit steals with the rule changes they made last year. But going back to the question you asked, in the shorter formats, I would absolutely shoot for stolen base upside from shortstop because I believe the most stolen bases you're going to get are going to come from your outfielders and your shortstops. Some second base, obviously it's sprinkled in, at each position there's a little bit.
Yeah.
But by and large, you'll notice as we go through these positions, this to this point has the most stolen base.
And now
Floor.
the question in my mind is going to be like, and I know who some of these names are. It's not that I'm clueless, but like,
Yeah, and some of these names
who's
are
even going to come close to Bobby Witt's numbers? That's my question in my mind. But we'll get there. We'll get to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, any other big takeaways you want to touch on?
Like I said, this position offers a little bit of everything. There's some guys here that have tremendous power that are going to go at the top of your draft, whether you're in a 12-team redraft or a deep league. There are some guys here who have a lot of speed potential with the good average. Some guys with a lot of speed potential with the bad average. Some guys that are, just kind of average across the boards. Like I said, depending on your league size, there's a little bit of everything to go around. Now, as we get down this list, you're going to see that my list differs a lot from some of the experts. Like, say you go online and you look at Scott White's rank from CBS Sports, or you look at Scott Chu positional rankings on Pitcher List, or you look at Justin Mason and Fangraph from the Sleeper in the Bust, his hitter rank. All these experts, I really look at their material, but I don't base my rankings off of that. I base these rankings off of a compilation of shallow and deep leagues. But as the rankings go on closer down to 20, there's going to be names on my list that aren't on the others because I'm not shooting for upside. I just don't want to be left with that replacement level player.
Sure.
Nothing against Paul DeYoung and using him as an example, but there's a reason St. Louis disposed of him, and that he is now on a White Sox team that I think he's going to lose his job to Colson Montgomery at some point this year. But that's to be determined. But I just don't want to be that guy that's missing out.
So we're going to talk more about players that were elevating in the rankings or fading in the rankings, differing from the consensus. And one of my big takeaways from this list of players was, at first glance, it was very hard for me to break from the consensus rankings that I was looking at. I mean, it is... It was difficult. I would say more so than some of the other positions we've looked at so far. One of my other takeaways was some of the names on this list, obviously very well-known names. We're talking about superstars. There's a little bit of an aging core of superstars on this list. Maybe not as bad as I thought at first, because I've outlined the ages of some of these guys just for reference. And we might talk a little bit about that. There's a temptation there for me to go younger. But as you said, I don't know how much upside am I willing to shoot for. What am I willing to pass up to go for that upside? So,
good piece.
And that came up with
nugget.
the third base position, but I think it's very prevalent here when you look at this list. I have on my piece of paper here the top 30 consensus ranked shortstops for 2024, and whenever
Your sources
we do this,
for the listening audience, your source for this.
So
Consensus rankings.
I'm looking at Fantasy Pros right now.
Okay.
So they've got ADPs, in their list, and also where they have ranked their players versus early average draft position, which is helpful to me. Best and worst rankings and everything. But what's crazy, every time we do this, we're ranking a top 15, a top 20. we're in a deep league again. I always have to go to at least 30 and put those names
Jay,
front and
a
center
good
on the
nugget
list.
to talk about here to remember, some of these deep leagues, I believe the ones we play in don't do this, but some leagues have middle infield as a roster
Yes.
spot. So you do need to go 30 deep because
Yes.
you're looking for a second baseman, a shortstop, and a middle infielder, and then you want to have something on your bench too. So
And with
yeah.
shortstop, even when we stop at 30, which by the way, the 30th ranked shortstop on this list, Carlos Correa, who you have much higher in your rankings. We'll talk about that. But
I like it.
I'm just gonna rattle off some of the names that are not on this list.
That are not,
That are not on this top 30 list.
On my list,
on I'm gonna call them consensus rankings. Okay, these are
Okay.
expert rankings. Okay?
Okay.
But let's just say who's not on the top 30 of this list, one of which might be in your is in your top 20 list. But Jeremy Pena, Jordan Lawler,
Jordan
Tim
Lawler
Anderson.
just missed the cut on mine.
Yeah. Tim Anderson, Vaughn Grissom, Ezekiel Duran, Brendan Donovan, Jordan Westberg. And that's not to mention who some of my deep comatose sleeper guys are on this list, who some of those names that I teased out were Ahmed Rosario, Zach McKinstry, Mauricio Dubon, Taylor Walls, Luis Garcia, and Luis Urias, who is in the 60s.
I love some of those guys. I really
In
do.
the 60s in the rankings of shortstops right now. So that's what I have to get past and process before I can start talking about the top 15, because you and I know in all reality that we're going to be paying attention to
Let's talk about the
every
top
name
20.
every name on this list that's not.
Yeah.
So but let's move on from that. Let's talk about the top 20. Number one on this list is there's not much back and forth we can do about this unless
Is there?
not in my mind. But
Okay.
number one is Bobby Witt Jr.
No, just for reference, you're referencing my top.
I am
20.
referencing your list. This is
Okay,
this is your
I
top 20
actually
rankings.
did
now.
go back and forth. At one point in time, I thought about putting Mookie Betts ahead of him. For those of you listening, Mookie Betts is not shortstop eligible in all leagues, but he did play, I believe, 10 games. He played 5 or 10 games at shortstop, which in some leagues gives him eligibility at shortstop. Now, most leagues, Mookie Betts is playing outfield or second base. But in leagues where he's eligible at shortstop, just another tool to have. And here's the thing. Why would I? First of all, no. I put Bobby Witt Jr. in 1. All right? I came to my senses. But why would I question it? I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Mookie Betts' stat line. He scored 126 freaking runs. 39 home runs. 107 RBIs. A 307 average and a 987 OPS. He beats Bobby Witt in average, in OPS, in RBIs, in home runs, and runs.
Fair enough.
Okay. Why would I not and I don't see him baiting anytime soon with Shohei Ohtani going to town.
At 31 years old, you don't see.
I don't. Not him. Because they can
You're
move
not
him
really
around.
concerned about.
I know, because
about
his
that.
game is predicated on his power. Notice I left out a stat. The one glaring stat where Bobby Witt kills him at, which is stolen bases.
Right.
However, 14 stolen bases is not a knock on Mookie Betts.
No, not at all.
You know, I'm not
at all.
sure he's going to continue to steal that much. Maybe he's still 10 this year. But at what point does the supreme power outweigh, look, Bobby Witt's young. He's number one because I see him making gains in all
Right.
those areas too. And I don't see regression from Betts. I just think Betts is plateauing. Fine, I'll plateau with this line.
Well, yeah.
I rank Mookie Betts second.
And it's
Be-
just a factor of there's no lack of talent. Obviously, it's just a factor of age and
It's not age for me. I try really hard to not use the age term. I know a lot of people do. It's the experience factor. And And it goes like this. If you get a young guy coming into the big leagues who's had, say, who's gone through 4. Well, no, we're going to allude to. I don't want to give away something I'm going to talk about later. But there's a player who
I think it's physical stature for me. It's not just age. It's physical stature. When does the power start to fade for someone who is not the size of Aaron Judge or David Ortiz?
People say Father Time says the hitter's prime in baseball, when you're not talking about the elite of the elite, is like 30, between 27 and 31 or 32.
Okay, fair enough, and that is what we're
and
talking
I think
about.
the
is
drop off
elite
starts
of the elite.
about 33. But with Mookie Betts, he's 31, so this will be his age 32 season coming up. He's on his plateau, and I see him.
He's been pretty durable.
With where he's at, I can see him doing this till he's 35 because of this lineup construction around him, and also because he's not reliant on those stolen bases, which is what I would expect to job first. And they have.
So that's been one of my questions about this position is, and it's what I was referring to with this core of superstar shortstops that we've all known about for years, is like which ones of them are going to continue to do this through age 35, maybe even 36, right? So you've got Bobby Witt Jr. number 1, Mookie Betts number 2. Let's read the next few names here, okay? 3, 4, and 5.
Let's read 3 because I do feel like there's a difference.
All right,
coming.
We got to stop at each one. So you got number 3 as Corey Seager, and you see a drop off here after this.
A very small drop off, and here's why. Corey Seager to me is just a small, teensy, diluted version of Mookie Betts. And I don't mean to say that he's only 80% Mookie Betts. I think if you look at Corey Seager's line, 88 runs. Okay. There's a diluted sample of Mookie Betts. He just doesn't, for all the lineup construction he has in that Texas lineup, it's still not the Dodgers lineup.
No, and I think he's just such a great hitter that I feel like they probably rely on him to hit people in. Did he hit 4th a lot?
He has. I've seen him
Was he at third a lot?
4th,
right,
2nd. I think he hits 2nd, 3rd more often than 4th.
All right.
So it's usually 2nd, 3rd. So his plate appearance is going to be there. Look, I do put Corey Seager in the same tier as Mookie Betts because he hit a 327 average and over 1,000 OPS, 1013 OPS.
Wow.
He is who he is. As long as he stays healthy, which he has the last couple of years, he is a strong hitter with great plate discipline, power to all fields. The only thing he doesn't bring to the table is steals. And can you blame him?
No.
No, I can't.
You have to keep him healthy.
You do. And so I actually see
him healthy. We've waited
you
for
know
years
who Corey
for
Seager
him to
reminds me of? Corey Seager reminds me of Mike Trout right after he stopped running.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Trout,
Good
when he was
comparison.
running, I mean, this is a debate for another day. I still think he's been the best player the last 20 plus years. But Corey Seager this past year, and I think going forward over the next couple of years, is Mike Trout 2016, 2017-ish. So I lump Corey Seager in the same tier as Mookie Betts because of the power production.
Okay, so the next tier, we're going to call it, okay? You've got...
A little clump. You don't have to call it a tier.
Yeah,
but it's where his season breaks.
Let's come up with our own term. It's a
Clusterfuck.
It's a mound of players here at 4 through 7. I'm just going to read through their names real quickly.
Oh, you know what, Jay? This is like when you're digging in the dirt and you find something really cool. So the further down we go...
A prize?
Well, yeah. Like the stuff that's at the shallow. These
Right.
are the shallow digs in the dirt. I mean, this is
Right.
where all the substance is. Once you start getting really deep. Dude, we're gonna go. I don't think.
I
we
mean,
can go
I know
with this.
I'm not going to have any of the three people that we just mentioned in either of
No,
my fantasy
I'm
leagues.
not.
So yeah,
I'm not.
yeah.
There's,
We
but
have to
but
dig a
they
little
are
bit
the
here.
cream of the crop.
They are. They absolutely are. Okay, so you got at 4, 5, 6, 7, Francisco Lindor, Trey Turner, Gunnar Henderson, and Bo Bichette. Now, just before you go into number 4,
We don't have to go through each one either.
You have moved Bo Bichette up from what I'm calling, from what some of the experts are putting him at right now in the early rankings, and I agree with you. So this is one of the places that we were very much on the same page about. Bo Bichette is 25 years old. Does it surprise anyone to hear this? Because I think we think of him as someone who's 27 and's been here a little bit more, but I had to stop and realize this guy's 25 years old.
Yeah.
So,
we've not seen Bo Bichette's best, in my opinion. We have not.
So, for me, it's like I can't put these other guys ahead of him. Certainly not C.J. Abrams or someone like that. Nothing against C.J. Abrams, but I'm just saying. I agree with you. Like I think he's here in this top 7, and I do think there's a little bit of a drop off again after him. So what are your thoughts about these names right here?
So with Bo Bichette in particular, what I look at as a player, through team context around him, they all seem to underachieve. Vladimir Guerrero Jr.,
Certainly last year, I agree,
Springer's been around forever now. We've seen his best, but I feel like
it's just
he
a
struggled a lot
team firing
last year.
all cylinders that we want to see. That we we don't see day in and day out, and it's not anything against any of these guys, probably really, or their individual.
So here's what the industry is going to say. The industry is going to say, "Oh, Bo Bichette only scored 69 runs. Oh, Bo Bichette only stole 5 bases." Yeah, then this isn't who we thought he was. And the industry is going to be down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a buying opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, Bo Bichette is going to score a lot more runs than 69.
Was there a leg injury? Was there something? What happened last year?
Bo Bichette is going to steal at least 10 bases this coming year. But how do I feel comfortable ranking him in this tier? It's simple. Despite all of that, he still sports a .306 batting average with an .814 on-base plus slugging percentage.
So he suffered a quad injury at some point late in the season. Was on and off the IL twice, at least twice late last season. So I was trying to remember. So there were some leg injuries. I can't go back further than that right now. But the point is, there were some injuries, whether they were small or not.
And
this is not,
people just don't
this
produce.
This is actually a positive thing for me. I'm saying, I hope he can stay healthy. I'm just saying, and I don't know that I can't think of any big ones that we can say like he's not durable at this point. I think it's a good thing. I just think it feeds into the stat line that you just mentioned that we need to see a full season.
We absolutely do. And looking at this tier here, first of all, I don't want to hit on everybody in depth, but Francisco Lindor, he's still in his prime, even though I think he's 29 or 30. You have Mr. Ageist over here. Do you have his age in parentheses?
I am totally ageist. Oh, why didn't I not put?
Anyways, nurses against age. Yeah, that's a real good combination. Anyways, but with Francisco Lindor, he went 30-30 last year on a bad Mets team. Now, he's still got some decent line of contact on him. As long as Pete Alonso's there, he scored 108 runs.
30 years old, by the way.
There you go. Okay, so but at 30 years old, maybe he regresses to 25 steals this year, and maybe he only hits 27 home runs. But the average is a little bit underwhelming. But the lineup, Francisco Lindor is who he is.
Yeah, I think
and
there's
then a modern day
factors
version
that
of
go
this
into
game,
that average.
like
Yeah.
he is a
Situational.
perfect floor player. Like if you want a really good top tiered shortstop so that you can set your lineup and forget about it, not to worry about it, Francisco Lindor is not a bad. But and you know what? It's not a bad choice. And you know what? I rank him in my top 5 because I feel like his floor might be a little bit less than what he put up last year, but it's still going to get you top flight value. And the opportunity cost that you have to pay for him at the draft table is usually late second, early third round in a redraft. If you pair him up with a guy, a high batting average guy in the first round, you know, he doesn't have a low batting average that you have to offset for. He's just not helpful there. But I can see him working that average back up to a 270.
So speaking of floor, and what is the floor for a player and buying opportunities, what do you expect from Trey Turner this season? What are your thoughts on him?
Glad you asked. So Trey Turner was underwhelming for the most part last year, and depending on who you talk to, some people will be like, "Oh, that one game."
I don't even know if I should say
was like
buying
in
opportunities.
June or July.
Fantasy
I don't
Pros
know.
ADP right now 8. So I'm being. I guess I'm saying that because he's number 5 on your list. So obviously there's an opportunity there for some owners.
I'm biased when it comes to this, and this is why I rank Trey Turner 5th. Anytime a player gets a big contract, I'm very hesitant to buy them on that first year. This is Trey Turner's second year.
Mm-hmm.
Now he has a year nucleus under the belt with Bryce Harper, with Kyle Schwarber, with Alec Boehm, with Bryson Stott, with all these guys, you know, with the Philadelphia fan base and the media market, and his family is rooted there now, will be more rooted this coming year. I expect Trey Turner's numbers to increase. I expect his numbers to get back closer to the career norm. Now, Trey Turner is what? I believe 30 or 31?
30.
Okay, so as we're looking down here, I'm looking at my spreadsheet. Trey Turner put up okay, and what we should consider to be a down year for him, he still scored 102 runs. Okay, that's not going to change with the lineup he has around him and where they're going to hit him. On a down year, he still stole 30 bases. I would think most years, given his age, his steals are going to regress, but they've already regressed, and they made changes to the game that I think he could hold 30 steals a year for at least another year, maybe
if he
2.
gets on base more.
He has like
and
90th percentile
totally
sprint
agree.
speed still.
Yeah.
Also, with his, I believe his batting average is going to go up. 266 is too
Absolutely.
low for him.
Absolutely.
That's going to be over 280.
If you remember.
And his OPS is going to go, in turn, it's going to go up over 800. And there's a chance his RBIs go up. His RBIs may just stay the same based on where they put. But if you just simply keep his 102 runs, keep his 26 home runs, keep his 76 RBIs, keep his 30 steals, increase his average to 280, and increase his OPS to 800, I feel like you've got a top 5 shortstop. Again, this is a floor that you should be shooting to attain because there is some upside with him. But if you don't get that upside, you're not going to be kicking yourself in the rear end later because you're still going to have one of the better shortstops.
No, and if you remember, like, last year I'm going to use the word struggled for a good part of the early season. And you brought up a good point of, signing a big contract, coming to the Philadelphia sports market, and the headlines about him. I mean, it's just like it's ridiculous. It's just this made up stuff.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Trey Turner? For 2 or 3 months, we're talking about what's wrong with him. There's nothing wrong with him.
He moved. He went from Washington to LA to Philly
There
in
was
like
nothing wrong
a
with him,
3-year span.
I'm just pointing out that the narratives in the big sports markets are just it's funny.
Ridiculous.
It is comical to look back on it and be like, yeah, there was nothing wrong.
Did
with
you
it.
see
So,
the Beckham documentary on Netflix?
I have not watched that
It
yet.
is awesome. And here's what I think is so cool about that. I'm sorry to break away from
No, it's
baseball,
fine.
but David Beckham was with Manchester United since he was like a kid, like less than a teenager.
Yeah.
And then he left
For those
Man
of you that
U.
don't know, these professional soccer clubs have leagues and ranks all the way from young children all the way to professional. So they're integrated the way that sports in our world, in our country, are not.
He was the it factor. And, growing up, he was all over all the tabloids and everything. So, first of all, he had a major media presence. But what I'm trying to get at is he had started a family with Victoria, and they had kids.
Mm-hmm.
He uprooted from Manchester United, the only home he ever knew, to go to Real Madrid in 2003.
Yeah.
That was a big deal because if you watch the documentary, it didn't go over well with Victoria.
Yeah.
And that was a big transition for him. Towards the end of his Real Madrid time, he was there for 4 years, he was himself and even upped his game to be even better. But then another dispute, and all of a sudden he's going overseas to LA in California. And, another transition. What I'm trying to get at is when you're a star in any sport, take your star and the media presence away. If you got a family, you got a family. And when you have to uproot yourself and move your family from the school, from your social group and network, your support, that takes time to adjust.
Absolutely.
And I feel like Trey Turner was just adjusting last year.
Yeah. It's more of a personal story than a baseball story. It's like just that's how I feel about it. Yeah, too. So and yes, for you young listeners out there, happy wife, happy life. Okay, so you gotta make sure that
Or happy partner.
There you go. However you want to, but it's just you got to adjust, and that's what the great athletes do. But they're not robots. Okay, they're human beings. Everybody's got to take time to adjust, and they go through a process and manage your emotional life. Absolutely, it's just a part of life, and the great athletes, and I feel like the older I've got, the more I really respect greatness wherever I see it, no matter who it is. And that's where the sports fandom and your fanaticism about your own team starts to break down, and you just look at a great athlete wherever they are, even if it's on the team that you hate, and you just respect greatness and consummate professionalism, and I don't know. That's something that, for example, Peyton Manning brought to the city of
Indianapolis. I was about to say,
the consummate professional. I mean,
but think about him.
Very early in his career, there may have been some questions, right? Okay, what did we get? Who is this guy? Is he strong? Is he consummate professional? Is he mentally tough? The answer was yes. And it just took us a very short time to find that out. And then once you realize that, everyone was on board. You're on board. I mean, there's always going to be some detractors and haters, but I mean, once you have that, it's time to move forward with that, and that's what the Philadelphia Phillies are going to do. And I just hope they, solve some of those other little riddles and enigmas that they need to with their roster. But if they do, look out, because
absolutely,
yeah,
I'm a little small nugget here talking about Peyton Manning. My wife's one of the biggest Peyton Manning fans of all time, and she's a Colts fan through and through. She stayed with the Colts even when he transitioned. But what I'm trying to get at is, she always said like people just need to be patient with him when he was going through the injury here, before he got cut. And if you realize, he went to Denver and took off. But there was still a transition period that happened.
Yes, there was.
With Peyton. He just didn't see it because he missed that whole year where the Colts were pretty bad and he was still under contract before they released him. And what I'm saying is, no matter where you are in the sport, whether you're Peyton Manning, the Trey Turners of the world, or whether you're just like us, trying to create a living and then we move jobs.
Yeah.
There's a transition period for a family. Like, I can't tell you what it would do. Like, if I told my wife and my girls that we were moving to, say,
San Diego,
California because I got a job opportunity. Hey, you got a job opportunity. That's flattering, but now what the fuck are we going to do? Look at all the stress we got to go through moving.
Yeah.
Like that. We spend enough time talking about this. I'm solid with my ranking on Trey Turner.
Gunnar Henderson. Thoughts, comments, questions, concerns?
He's a young player on the rise on a great Baltimore team. He scored 100 runs, had almost 100 RBIs. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. A player we're about to talk to is going to be his running mate, and he also has Adley Rutschman there and a bunch of other guys coming up through the system. I don't think his production is going to drop off. It's only going to take off from here.
The rise to prominence in an organization with him and Adley Rutschman it's pretty noteworthy. Like there is not too many guys that come up in this amount of time and start to hit in the 3 and 4 spot in a lineup and stay there for an entire season without the ups and downs and moving up and down in the lineup and even losing your job for a while. I mean, right? So, yeah, it's definitely noteworthy that they're here to stay. So, all right. So, number 8 on your list, Elly De La Cruz.
We spoke about him at length on the Third Base podcast.
We did.
I do just I know he's going to play shortstop mostly in 2024 because of Noel V. Marte, but they also have Jaime Candelario there, and I think, but again,
Power and speed upside.
Yeah, we spoke.
The batting average, I feel, can only get better. Even if it's the same, you know you're going to get some dingers and some stolen bases.
He's in a little cluster of 2 players here where there's so much variance, but I hold them in such high regard. But
anybody else on this list that can steal second, third, and home before you can blink your freaking eye?
I don't know.
I don't even know if Bobby Witt Jr. can do that the way that Elly De La Cruz can do that. Even with the 60-something
you know I'm
bases.
the low guy on the totem pole with Elly, but I respect his potential, and that's why I rank him in the top 10.
Just the dynamic potential. I mean, I watched his first few games coming up playing last year, and when you see it, you just know that you're watching something special. That's just that was the general impression. Like, anyone who watched it knew, like, oh my God, like you're watching some kind of dynamic talent, whatever this ends up being and wherever he ends up, because looking at him, and we already talked about this, like, where does he end up playing the most of his career at? And that he's like the O'Neal Cruz too, right? Where he's just a big physical specimen, and like, how long does he play at shortstop? I don't know, but he's obviously very talented, and not that he can't play that position for a long time, but you know how it is. Organizations have to
He'll get
put you
moved
where
at some point,
right? They have
probably
to
not
put
in the
you
next
where
couple
you
years.
can help the team the most, and
Yeah.
that goes for. It doesn't matter who you are. Sometimes, like, you have to make a change for the organization.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's not too many people who are exempt from that. Bryce Harper is learning a new position right now. Okay, so, anyways, so you got we gotta pause here for a second. There's a guy named Jackson Holiday who's number 9 on your list of on your top 20 list of shortstops.
Are we making rankings and projections, or are we just going verbatim off what people say we should do? I said there'll be a little variance in my list. I know I'm probably not even the high guy, but I think I'm up amongst the higher guys in Jackson Holiday. Look, the kid's 20 years old. He just turned 20 years old. So you ask me as a listener, like, why should I rank this guy in my top 10? And you're just asking for me to have a wasted spot. Well, here's why. First of all, the Orioles, as well as any other MLB team, are incentivized to bring up their top prospect on opening day so that they can have the potential to get Rookie of the Year honors and award their team with a high draft pick in the next year's draft. Jackson Holiday is the prototype for this system. Jackson Holiday is MLB's number one prospect. You can lump him if we're talking dynasty. We can talk about a cluster of four because we know we're talking about clusters here.
Yeah.
Wyatt Langford, Jackson Holiday, Jackson Churio, and Junior Caminero. I believe all four of those guys are going to come up this year and be impactful. Jackson Holiday, I firmly believe, is going to. People will say he's going to win, but I really believe he's going to get handed the shortstop job from day one.
Right.
And I believe that his left-handed bat is going to play well in that lineup and at Camden because he has a 70 hit tool, great plate discipline. He made it through 4 levels of the minors in 2023. He went from rookie ball to high A to double A to triple A, and he did well at each stop. His average took a little bit of a dip from going from high A to double A, but that's going to happen.
His fantasy pros ADP 172, just 3 spots behind Willie Adames. They have him ranked 18 spots below his ADP, so they're fading him in the rankings.
The question is
about productivity in 2024.
The question is are they ranking him based upon say just sheer? We think he's going to put up this stat line.
Yeah, this is redraft.
I still think even in a deep league,
keepers
this is why I put Jackson Holiday 9. The next cluster fucking players that I love. I'm sorry, guys, if I drop a couple of F-bombs on the air. Again, we're nurses. It happens. The next cluster of players we're about to talk about, there's a lot of questions. And rather than deal with the questions and then the subsequent boring players, I would much rather take a shot on Jackson Holiday, who may not have the physical tools that Ellie De La Cruz has, but Jackson Holiday basically, I believe, is going to come in and be what Bo Bichette was just a couple years ago. But if you remember, Bo Bichette was 20 when he came in too. Actually, he might have debuted at 19, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyways,
you might be right there.
Yeah, I think he's going to be handling the job from day one, and I'm going to rank him in my top 10. I'm going to have as many shares of him as I can.
So 10, you got C.J. Abrams, 11, Nico Horner, and 12, Ha-Seong Kim.
This is my be careful section of my rankings. So all 3 of these players are coming off career years. All 3 of these players have major question marks surrounding them. Okay, so for example, C.J. Abrams' ADP, where is that on Fantasy Pros?
64 right now.
So to get C.J. Abrams in a standard 12-team
That's
league,
pretty wild.
Yeah, well, you've got to draft him by the end of the 5th round. If you're lucky, maybe in the top of the 6th round.
No, thank you.
There is no value cost there because you are betting that he is going to replicate his stat line or better to pay off for that 64 draft pick. If his ADP was 90, this would be a different conversation. I just don't feel like there's any buying opportunity. His cost is too high. His plate discipline is not the best
developing
because of his stature. He does have a good hit tool.
Glad you brought that up because this is where it differs.
Just because you have a good hit tool doesn't mean you have great plate discipline. And here's why. To get 18 home runs at his stature, you really kind of have to change your swing to get there. And I don't believe he's going to attain 18 home runs year in, year out. People want him for the stolen bases. Okay, but to get those steals, you've got to get on base.
You know what? And I think that, like you're saying, I think that people are expecting him to hit 20 home runs and year in and year out. And
What was his stat line last year? He had 47 steals. I know that's what people are going gaga over. I see him as a player.
part of his hype was the power potential, but when you look at him, you're like, this isn't going to happen.
Well, I
Like,
think part of his hype was he's got a great hit tool, and he's a speedster. But usually, when you have a great hit tool, part of that hit tool is having great play discipline. And I think if you look at some of his under the hood numbers, they're hinting at regression for him. So I don't see him hitting 1,847 steals. I see him maybe hitting 12 home runs and stealing 35 to 40 bases. And that's still a good player, but I mean, with a low average, is that the player that you're looking at with that draft cost?
what's the stat line for Nico Horner in 2023?
So Nico put up what's going to dazzle people is 98 runs and 43 steals. And
Yeah.
283 average is really helpful.
Yeah.
But he only hit 9 home runs, only 68 RBIs, only 729. Look, I'm failing to mention I'm still ranking these guys 10, 11, 12. There's just a lot of questions.
Does that
I
get him
don't
in the
think-
where does he end up in the lineup? Does that get him in the leadoff spot?
He's either going to hit first or second. He is. I think he's cemented that.
Okay.
I just don't see him replicating 43 steals. I think that was like a 90th percentile outcome. I see him maybe going down to like 35 steals.
Yeah.
And then I see his average down to 280. But again, you're not getting much for power. And so these guys, here's the thing, guys. With C.J. Abrams, Nico Horner, and Ha-Seong Kim, they have to maximize their value to be able to get you what you're paying for. There's no buying opportunity, I feel like, because their cost is so high. It's based off their season last year, and there's no room for regression.
But I would say at this point, you're not taking a chance on Matt McClain over these three guys. I'm sure in some scenarios.
In
you
my
are, but-
drafts, I'm going to try to avoid this trio of players as much as possible. But I'm also trying to be objective and not just subjective.
Sure.
I believe I would be more excited about a player like Matt McClain over these three.
Yeah. I
However,
agree with
these
that.
three, if they do live up, I mean, there's a lot of stolen bases amongst this trio.
Sure.
Stolen bases is important if you don't get it early. These trio of players going, between ADP 64 and probably like 100 for Ha-Seong Kim, somewhere in there, I don't know. In the back half of the top 100, if you missed out on the elite of the elite stolen base guys at the top, they give you a second chance. That's why I clumped them here. But this tier is where you start to have questions.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm in a standard 12-team league, if I don't have my starting shortstop by the time C.J. Abrams comes up, I'm disappointed. But that's just me.
So your next cluster bomb here, 13 through 16, is Matt McClain, Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Correa, and Andres Jimenez. Andres Jimenez going around ADP 100 right now. Some of the rankings are going to have him quite a bit below his ADP in our rankings of shortstops. You've got him at 16. I think you're. Go ahead.
I'll give you 2 words with this group right here. Boring and floored. Again, I told you, getting towards the end of my rankings, and we're getting close. We're in the back half. it's going to differ greatly from what some of the industry's leading experts are going to have. At this point in our deep leagues, again, I'm not shooting for. I'm trying to take established players who I know are going to be productive.
And I
The
agree with
interesting
you,
thing
by
about
the way.
this
I
group of
agree with you
players-
about Andres Jimenez, where just about where you got him in the rankings.
Thank you.
I
With
might
Andres
even
Jimenez, he's
might
kind of
take him
weird.
over Carlos Correa, but that's
Well,
tough for me right
I'm
now.
higher on Correa than I think the consensus. Here's why. I do try to, in the back of my mind, even when I'm going for floor, look for a glimmer of hope of upside.
I think
and when I
still
say
have,
upside,
speaking to the back of your mind, I still have health concerns in the back of my mind because after his contract story, it was like, how many contracts fell through before he finally signed at least
So-
one? But anyways,
so with
go back to
Correa-
your thought.
could you see a 97th percentile outcome being him returning a top 25
Yes.
value? Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I can see
do.
it. I can
Like,
see a
he's
real
healthy
path to that.
and plays 150 games. I really do. Plus, I think he's got an opt out coming up in that contract he signed. It's either this year or next year. I'm sorry. Family matters. Contracts matter. I buy players in contract years, even if it's going for an opt out.
Absolutely.
Some players, people are motivated by
Especially
money.
with him after having shooting for a huge contract and not getting it because of real health concerns, right? So I agree.
Absolutely. So again, we're talking about floor boring players here, but these are players I do value.
What's the
these
floor
are players
for
that-
Xander Bogaerts?
Well, I think he's
In
going to get
2024.
moved around the diamond too. But let's look at
Okay.
his stat line from last year. Xander Bogaerts.
Where else
Put a-
besides the infield?
No.
Just-
No, I
just
think
in-
he's actually going to get moved over to first base at some point. That's my prediction.
Okay.
I think they like Ha-Seong Kim at short, and
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
Jackson Merrill coming up through the prospect ranks, who I think they would be more than happy to get time at second or third.
Yeah, Jake Cronenworth played
And
pretty much the
Cronenworth-
whole season at first base.
Cronenworth's
last year,
there,
so-
but I think Bogart could also go to second, but with his stature, I would almost, if I were making the choices, I would almost slide Cronenworth to second or third, plug in Merrill when he's ready, and move Bogarts to first base.
it makes sense. I buy into this.
But I think for all intents and purposes, Ha-Seong Kim is the best defensive shortstop that they have. I really do. And that's going to keep him on the field. And we didn't talk about him a lot, but I feel like there's some regression baked in with Kim. But if I know we're going back up the ranking here, but with Kim versus Abrams and Horner, I might have a little bit more of Kim because he's multi-position eligible. He can play. He's eligible at second, third, and short in almost every league, every format now. While he's probably going to regress on the steals, his average might hold at
Well,
260.
and he did better offensively than Jake Cronenworth, so I just think he bought himself a lot of playing time. I mean, every day playing time,
Yeah.
most likely.
Lots of questions by him, but yeah, just a little nugget on
Yeah,
snippet. on
and their
him.
lineup kind of just
But-
how it all pieces together.
But you asked me about Bogarts. Even if he moves over, I feel like you're getting to the point in the draft where you're like, can I, in the lowest of outcomes, still shoot to attain 80 runs, 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, and a solid batting average? Xander Bogart does that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The 300 club, is
Not
any-
sure
is
there,
anybody-
but I think
No?
he's definitely a good bet for 280 plus.
Okay.
He might hit 300.
So the next cluster here, 17 through 20, you've got Jeremy Pena, Ezekiel Tovar. Is that Brandon Crawford?
No, that's
Sorry.
JP Crowd.
Sorry, JP Crawford.
JP.
Sorry,
That's
guys.
all right. Good question.
And Dansby Swanson. Well, it's JP Crawford has
JP Crawford scored 94 runs last year.
right. I mean,
J.P. Crawford went to driveline and improved his swing so that he can maximize it to get a little bit more power.
Yeah, hit the ball out of the infield.
They
get more
love
hits.
J.P. Crawford in Seattle, so he's going to continue to hit every day in that lineup.
Yep.
And when you got Julio Rodriguez there and some of those other guys,
yeah. And if he's even if he's in the bottom of the lineup, there's a lot of run scoring potential. And
I think when he's on his game more often than not, he hits at the top.
Okay.
But if he's not, he goes down to 9. But with Julio Rodriguez there,
right,
it's a turnover to him really quickly. I think. So my common theme with these guys, where this is very vanilla, but here's the thing. These are deep leagues plays here. If you miss out on some of the others, and these are your fallbacks. These are your fallbacks in a redraft if you hit on the bus. This is what I alluded to earliest in the show. The difference between a 12-team format and a 16-team format is these guys at the bottom, maybe your starters in a 16-team format. These guys are on the waiver wire in some, not all, but in some 12-team leagues that you can get when you're started bust.
Yeah, just to clarify.
You can't get these guys on the waiver wire in a 16-team league. They all hold value. Swanson is kind of like Bogarts, and you can pencil him in for 80 runs, 20 home runs, 80 RBI, and some variance with his average, but he's going to give you solid production. With the other guys, Pena, I think he's still young.
Yeah.
I mean, was it not 2 years ago that he was the World Series MVP?
Yeah.
I think he's a sneaky deep league play, and we'll get to him in a little bit. Ezekiel Tovar plays in Coors Field. Is going to play every single day. Is going to hit towards the top of that lineup.
Yeah,
you talked about who's Nolan Jones going to hit in on our last podcast, and I joked, and you were like, "Oh, Charlie Blackmon." It's going to be Tovar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we were all paying close attention to him last season. I feel so many of us in our league, so it's pretty obvious that everyone's still paying attention. Everyone still has high expectations for him. So. Those haven't really faded in my mind either. So I agree with you putting him on this list. And just to point out, you've got J.P. Crawford above Tommy Edman, Julio Adames, Tyro Estrada, Anthony Volpe, on your list. So you obviously have some good feelings for J.P. Crawford. I differ from you there, but I'm okay with it, but I would pick a lot of those guys over him.
I think most people would.
Most people probably would, but
But this is what's fun about doing these rankings, Jay.
But
it's January, and we get to subjectively go through
Trevor
this.
Story. Did I mention that name?
So here's the thing. Trevor Story is going to be shortstop eligible in April.
Okay.
Because he's going to play shortstop because Vaughn Grissom was probably going to play second base. But
is Adalberto Mondesi out of the organization now? Is he gone?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I didn't want to mention the name.
Don't mention that
it's just
name.
that he held a place, even though he didn't play. He was holding a place in the organization, and there was a path to playing time. And now I know they have Vaughn Grissom and other middle infielders. I'm just saying.
You just got my head going.
Is he out of the picture completely? He must be. I would say Vaughn Grissom has now taken a place in the roster that they don't need him anymore, probably. So,
well, first of all, Trevor Story won't be shortstop eligible until he plays shortstop enough, which he should attain by early to mid-April, probably early April. But anyways, he played second base all last year. That's why. But if you look at Adalberto Mondesi 2020 season, was that the COVID year where he had that torrid September and just tore it up? What can you honestly? Okay, I want to phrase this
I have
question right
zero
for the audience.
expectations for him. By the way, I was just
no.
pointing out.
We're not talking
I
about
was just
modesty.
talking about their roster.
No, hear me out, Jay. This is not talking in terms of modesty. I'm taking what modesty did, and I'm going to put this on C.J. Abrams. Are you going to tell me that you can't see a small outcome where C.J. Abrams turns into the next Alberto Martinez?
Yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Now you
That's
see
what I'm saying.
why-
I do not think that C.J. Abrams is
At
gonna.
ADP
I have seen him.
64 is very
I
scary.
think that's crazy. I have seen him play at the major league level now, and I just don't think that he's gonna. He would have to change something to continue to hit home runs like that every. I just don't see it. I don't see him continuing to hit for any power in the major leagues. So he was able to do it in the minor leagues. How I don't know how. To profile him, I can't. I mean, I've studied him a lot in the past, but it's not evident to me right now how he can continue to do that.
Did he play in the minor league? He was in the Padres farm system.
Yes.
Didn't
That's
he
right.
play in the PCL?
I think so. Yes.
So in the PCL and AAA,
Smaller-
yeah, most of
smaller
those are
stadiums.
smaller venues, so your power numbers are going to be up.
Yeah.
Just something to watch out for when
Right.
you're evaluating players.
Yeah.
Also, don't bury pitchers who come out of there with a 4+ ERA. That is just a really hard place.
Where
So
are we at?
We've
Where
gone
are we at
through.
with the bottom
We've gone
of this
through my
list?
top 20.
And I already named a lot of guys who weren't on this list. And it's like, say no more. I'm not going to say anything else besides the fact that in deep leagues, I'm going to be looking at all of those guys for the whole season
For
when
those
they become available.
For those of you out there, we've gone through a lot of names here, and there are a lot of names I am leaving off, and I encourage all of you to go through this process. It was exhilarating. But we love this game so much. I just love going through these. To wrap this show up, though, I do have a little snippet for you guys. Player I'd like to spotlight is Jeremy Pena. And here's why. For those of you guys looking for a sneaky play at shortstop, Jeremy Pena plays in a loaded Astros lineup. I know some of them are getting older. I know Bregman's contract coming up. There's questions. Look, Altuve's still there. Alvarez is still there. Bregman's still there. Kyle Tucker's still there. The mainstays are still there. It's a decent hitter's park. Pena, I think he had a little bit of a down year last year, but he still hit 263. And I think that was kind of a sophomore slump. He came in hot his rookie year. They made the World Series. Emotions were high. He got a World Series MVP. I believe that's what the honor was, right? I don't want to be wrong on there. Anyways, but you look that up. He ended 2022 on a high note, and I think that left some sour taste in people's mouth. Jeremy Pena, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he is going to be rising into the top 10 or anything, but this is a very sneaky play. If you want to spend your draft capital elsewhere and just have a solid but yet unspectacular set it and forget it shortstop.
Yeah, first rookie position player to win a World Series MVP. Too,
That's
by the
Jeremy
way.
Pena.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's young now, too, right?
Yeah.
He's still, 23, 24 maybe?
Yeah.
Anyways, he's going to play every day. His defense his glove will keep him playing every day.
26.
He's
26.
26, so he was an older rookie. But still, 26. He's still not even reached his prime yet.
Right.
I see a scenario where I'll be honest, I see a 50th percentile outcome where he's a 15 home run, 15 steal guy with a 270 average. 50th percentile outcome means there's room for more. I do see a world where he's 2020. That's more of a 75th, 80th percentile outcome. But anyways, I think he's a sneaky play in the back half of these rankings, and I don't think he's a player that people should sleep on. That being said, I think we've said enough. My spotlight player to fade is C.J. Abrams. and you spoiled my surprise when you brought up Alberto Mondesi. His again, nothing against CJ Abrams. I think he could still not. I don't think he's going to replicate his numbers last year, but he could. He could be even better. I mean, in case that makes me look like an idiot, but that's fine. All of us, in some instances, are going to look like that. I just think his draft cost is too high. You're not going to gain any value benefit unless he has his 99th percentile outcome.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest fade,
Yeah.
CJ Abrams.
I'll tell you who the experts are fading: Andres Jimenez, Bryson Stott, who's not on your
Bryson
list.
Stott is not a shortstop.
Oh, no longer.
He was a shortstop
that's
last
right.
year. I
That's
love Bryson Stott. We are going to talk about
We're going to
some
talk about
Bryson
second
Stott
base next time.
on the second base
Okay.
podcast.
All right, guys. We are the Fantasy Baseball Advocates. Look out for us. We're gonna keep this content coming. I think we're gonna cover second base next time, and that'll complete the infield. Then we're gonna move to outfield.
Oh, I'm so excited for outfield.
Oh, man.
And started pitching.
It's gonna be such a big list of outfielders. I mean, because we're gonna have to go. I think I don't know. We'll probably just talk about outfield as one.
I
don't
yeah.
know. Are we
Well,
gonna
I
break
think
it out?
outfield's going to be like a whole month. I think what we
Yeah,
should.
we're just gonna have to talk about
I
it for
think
more
we
than
should do
one
second
episode.
base, and then we'll do relief pitching, and then by that time it'll be February.
Mm-hmm.
And in February and March, we'll talk about outfield, starting pitching, and do our mock drafts, our mocks, our first round mocks.
Mock it up. I'm gonna mock it up.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be so fun. All right. Well, again, as Jay alluded to earlier, we are the Fantasy Baseball Advocates. We so appreciate your time. Have a safe, healthy weekend. Be safe out there if you're traveling. There's a lot of storms in the Northeast with snow.
Signing off.
Be well.